Thanks for joining us on another episode of Beyond the Listing, where we explore the business of real estate outside the listing environment. I'm your host, Jeremy Medor.
And I'm Danielle Downs.
So we both recently came back from separate weeks of
right there at the
Florida
time.
trips.
Yeah.
I came back and you went down.
Yep.
And so we kind of tag teamed the admin responsibilities. Yes. And I appreciate you allowing us the flexibility to go away for a week without having to pick up, business calls, et cetera. And also to Keith for taking care of the edits and the floor plans and things like that. And so that was really integral to our time in Florida. And I also am always happy to cover for the inbound phone calls and emails for the bookings while you're away and deliver files, et cetera. But it always galvanizes to me the importance of our team environment that we have and the value that it brings. So it's never more present than when you or I, or even Keith for that matter, take time off. And because when that person is missing, it shows what they actually do that we take for granted, right?
Yep.
So I just wanted to say thank you for giving my family that time.
Thank you to you available.
As well. You're very welcome, very welcome. And I know that you work very hard for what it is that you do. And, it could easily be, boiled down to just, she just answers phones. No. Macintosh Dropbox downloads. What? So, but no, it's noticed.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And you enjoyed your stay?
I did. Yeah. The weather was not, ideal for me, but it was still nice.
It wasn't sweltering hot.
It wasn't.
No, I know.
It was a real winter, what my dad said. Like that was the first time they've been down there for 10 years. This is the first time they've had like a real winter.
Yep.
It didn't really rain that much, which was nice, but there were a couple of days where it was just windy.
And remind me again in Florida where
there's Sebastian. So they're about an hour and 20 southeast of Orlando. So they're on the East Coast.
Oh, all right. So they're Atlantic side.
Yep.
Okay. Right.
And it was just windy. And I don't mean like just a gust. It was days
sustained.
Worth. Yes.
Yeah. Same thing with us. So it got up to like a high of like 65, 70 on a day-to-day basis, right around 1 o'clock. Mm-hmm. But the wind was consistent through the day.
Yeah.
A good 10, 15, 20 mile an hour winds sustained to the point where like we had a pool in the back of our Airbnb. It was a heated pool, thankfully, so the kids got to enjoy it.
Sure.
But the pool, the wind was sufficient enough where it was actually blowing things out of the pool and across the yard. Thankfully, we had a fenced-in yard, so it just collected. But it was just that really gusty,
crazy. Like we tried. We went out to dinner one night, and it's on the water. Just there's like a little pier, and it's just the river at that point that separates that and the ocean. But it was. Like Mabel was like blowing away, like because you have to walk the dock in order to get to the rest. Like she was loving it. It was funny for her, but it was just the kid was like her hair was everywhere. I was like trying to grab her. I'm like, don't walk too far away from me.
I need Winston's leash.
Seriously, I'm like, stay with me.
The realtor that we are interviewing today has an endless pursuit of work-life balance, and her biggest goal this year is to be present more and to make sure that she, manages those two sides of her life, work and life. And so I think that, as professionals ourselves, we also encounter the same challenges. And
absolutely. So,
one of my goals has been and will continue to be spending valuable time, experiences with my family. And I'm glad that you got to do that same thing. So without further ado, let's get to our guest.
All right.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Beyond the Listing. I'm your host, Jeremy Medor, and I'm sitting here today with
Kate Jackson with Caldwell Banker with the SRS team.
Thank you so much for coming on the show today, and I can't wait to have our conversation.
Thank you for having me.
And I always love talking to you. You're an easy person to talk to.
Thank you.
So it's always pleasant, and so I wanted to allow an opportunity for you to talk a little bit about your history, how you got into real estate, why you do, what you enjoy most, what you find most challenging, et cetera. And it's kind of a story arc there, but it's not any specific spot to start. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
I've been in real estate for 7 years. I live in Leominster, grew up in Fitchburg, didn't go very far away from it.
Okay.
Married, have a dog and a cat, own a single family house, which I love. I never want to move.
Good.
Ever.
Good.
Yep.
With as much real estate as you see, is that a hard commitment, or are you really, really firmly set where you are?
I just love my house. I just love where we live. I love our neighbors. There have been a few homes that have tempted me to like think about it, like go home and say, Mark, what do you think? But no, we've done so much work.
You've made it your own.
Yes.
Yeah. And so you've put a lot of energy and time into that, a lot of vision.
Yes.
Okay. And from what I understand, your dad helps you with a good amount of stuff as far as like the building. I know that he did the shed in your backyard and stuff, but
that was a process.
That was a process. I followed the whole thing.
Yeah. Step by step, every weekend there was a new, like something new with it. Yeah. We take the weekends, and he's a master contractor. He builds houses from scratch. He loves finish work. His eye for detail is unmatched. So he helps us do the project. We roofed my house a couple years ago, and we've done a lot. So
you recognize that your dad has an eye for detail. Is that something that got passed down to you, and that's why you're in this line of work, or?
I like to hope so.
You like to hope so?
I do feel like I notice things a little bit more than most sometimes, just because he's always pointing things out, and we've worked together so much. I kind of can see things when I'm like, that doesn't look straight.
All right. So something a little bit more critical.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And so your critical eye, how is that translating for you into your job path?
I think it's just something that I can notice I notice smaller details when I'm helping clients like look for homes or home inspections. I don't know if my home inspectors love that, but they tolerate me.
And we tolerate them.
Yes, exactly.
Door swings both ways, I think. But no, that's good. So why real estate?
Matt was asking me to do real estate for so long.
Blame
and I
Matt.
I blame Matt. I did work with him, renting out his apartments back when he had like 1 million rentals in Fitchburg. I used to do a lot of his rentals prior to getting like really heavy into real estate. I actually went to real estate school twice, because I went once and then realized I wasn't ready to jump in, because I don't like to do something if I'm not like ready to make it happen.
Oh, okay.
I don't like to like go in and like half do things.
Got it.
I can't do that.
Okay.
So I wasn't quite ready. So that time lapsed where I had to take the class again, because it was like 4 or 5 years past.
Sure.
But I took the quicker version, and I don't think I could have done the quicker version without taking the full version first.
Got it. Okay. All right.
But
so there was like a round 2.
Yeah.
In real estate. So the first time was more along the lines of, I guess so kind of thing.
Yeah. Whereas maybe I'll get into it a little bit more, but then I realized what it entails and the process of everything, and the time and energy and effort you have to put into it. And my heart wasn't fully in it yet.
Okay. It's interesting, because that actually piggybacks off of a conversation that I just had with Anthony DeZuzio before you came on in. And we were talking about that level of commitment from an agent, committed to the process, committed to the experience, the overall outcome, and the relationship building, of course, and how a lot of new agents lack the understanding of what actually goes into making a transaction happen, and how it could be one of those tipping points for a lot of people where it's that all in or not at all kind of thing. And so the second time around, you were all in.
I was all in.
Okay.
I mean,
And when was that?
7 years ago.
Okay.
Yep. It feels like it's been less time than that. But yep, 7 years ago, I jumped in.
And it's been a memorable 7 years.
Yeah.
You've had a lot go on.
Yeah.
Personally, as well as through the business. And with your growth with Straight Real Estate Solutions, and now with Coldwell Banker underneath the SRS team. And so you've, I think, from a team standpoint, the SRS team is a admirable, unified group, I think that you guys get along exceptionally well, first of all, at least from an outside perspective. Obviously, I don't know the inner workings, right?
No, we do.
So it's always nice to see the dynamic that you guys bring, and it's heartwarming to see a positive team environment like that. There's a lot of teams that exist that we've come across that there's one or two key producers and then a bunch of followers. I feel like you guys have a lot more key producers and not as many followers. I feel like they're all you guys are kind of networked in with each other for all for the greater good.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of us have been doing it for a while too.
Yeah.
And I've known Carrie forever. She's one of my best friends, and we've worked together previously with other endeavors. So, I mean, it's nice to just be able to like work with her again. I know what I'm getting.
What'd you work on before?
We used to both be massage therapists.
Okay.
And we owned a studio. We had a studio together. So
I did not know that.
Business. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Wow. All right. There's a story arc.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was funny because where we've gone separate ways occasionally, we just like keep ending up back at the same company.
Yeah. Bad apples continue to show up.
Yeah. I guess so.
I'm just messing. No, you guys are fantastic, both of you. And I obviously, we were at the top producers banquet a couple weeks ago, and that's when I had invited you to, well, we had invited you prior to that, but you and I met face to face talking about today.
Yeah.
And Carrie was there, and I think that a couple other people also expressed a similar nervousness to doing podcasts.
It's my first one.
Yeah. And so honestly, for a lot of people, like Anthony just sat across from me, it was his first podcast. He's never been on a podcast before. And everybody comes to it with, I found that a lot of people that sit down here come into it with a certain nervousness, and a lot of it is because they don't know what to expect or what kind of questions and things like that. And the truth of the matter is, every single one of our podcasts have been just generally a conversation that meanders through what that realtors' reasons for doing business are, what kind of support staff they have in their own life as far as personal as well as vendor relationships, why they do what they do. And so it's a low pressure environment here at the studio.
Yeah, that's nice.
Just to get people comfortable on camera, because the truth of the matter is, especially today with marketing, it's not quite about how excellent you are at a specific task. It's how excellent of a human you are at all the tasks, right? And so we believe that if we look at the career path of a realtor holistically, how you're developing relationships with clients and how you're really nurturing all areas of their needs during not only the transaction process, but before and after that, we believe that makes the best permanent realtors. And so it's interesting to hear about your round two, because you saw early on at your first effort, you're like, whoa, wait a second, there's a lot that goes into this. Part-time's
not part-time with real estate, and full-time is like all the time.
Okay. All right.
It really is.
Talk to me about that.
I don't know. I tried not to go in going in part-time, just because I know what it takes and I want to be available as possible to my clients. I tried to, I guess, do it part-time. I had some side gigs that I would do that I was doing prior that I kind of just stuck with, but juggling them both is really hard. Your other stuff has to be really flexible to be able to like answer the phone or write an email or whatever you need to do.
You need to put the other thing on pause.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the other thing usually can wait and real estate doesn't.
Really? I would have never guessed that one.
Real estate doesn't wait. Everybody just wants it to, everything needs to be done like right when it needs to be done.
We understand.
Yeah.
We understand. It is the, Jen and I, my wife and I, we had a term that we used to use for the kids when they were little, the speed of now. And it's, it's like, no matter how fast you go, it never seems to be fast enough, right? And in real estate, I think that as much as we try to predict and plan, there's always those wrenches that get thrown at you, and your ability to catch them and handle them is probably one of the larger determining factors of whether or not you're long-term successful. So tell me a little bit about your approach that you take with your clients in regards to the whole process, whether it be a seller or a buyer? And for that matter, do you have a preference, seller or buyer?
I feel like obviously everybody likes listings. They're, I don't want to say easier. They're just a little bit more straightforward because there's not the whole like buying process and offers accepted and not accepted situation.
The shopping is different.
Yes, exactly. I try to just give everybody 100%. That's about it. And then you have to education, like educating your client is key. Because there are some things that you have to tell them. They're like, "Oh, I didn't know that." Like the most random things. Like, if you have an accepted offer, please don't go buy a car. Like, just like the little things that people joke, like as realtors, we joke around about, but
it's genuine.
It's a thing.
That's funny because, like, obviously, my network is primarily realtors, right? And so I'd make a horrible realtor because my sphere of influence is just realtors. So I don't, obviously know the end clients as much as I know the salespeople involved, right? And so, of course, my news feeds are honestly a lot of realtor memes and a lot of repeated industry items that I just take for granted at this point because it's, to me, common knowledge. But you're right. The end client, the seller or the buyer, may not actually know any of this stuff because for them, this is first time out.
Yep.
And even if it isn't the first time out, it might be 10, 15, 20 years since the last time. And some factors may have changed.
Some.
Yeah,
some. They're always changing.
Yeah.
They're always changing. You just roll with it. I don't know. I try to not be intimidated or scared from change.
Okay.
I'm like, go for it and see what happens.
Dive in.
Like, what's the worst that can happen? I don't know.
I like that.
Or worse things have happened kind of thing. It's just like one of those things you're like, well, we'll just pivot.
Yeah.
Just keep pivoting.
Yep. It's not brain science.
No.
Right. So that's, I admire that. We'll work with it. We'll deal with it as it comes up kind of thing. You go in with, education and a plan, and then you stay ready to adapt.
Yep.
Yeah. It's interesting. So what was, tell me a little bit about your experience in 2023 versus previous markets. Tell me a little bit about that.
2023, I feel like I got really lucky with a lot of my sellers because there wasn't a whole lot of like sell and buy.
Okay.
Like a lot of people moved out of like down south and out of the state and stuff. So it's
one side transactions.
Yeah. So that was easy, but there are a few that had the double side transactions, which just snowballs everything if it doesn't work out. And there were some interesting deals and there were some that you didn't think were going to happen that just really fell into place nicely.
Okay.
The market, I mean, it's definitely changed a lot since the 2020 market, a lot in the last 3 years.
Yep.
But then again, looking back at it, like 2018, we would have never been thinking that 2020 was going to happen the way it did, and the snowball effect with 2021 and 2020, with how you just threw a house on the market and it sold.
Right.
Like that's not a thing anymore.
No, it's not.
Well, at least not for this market right now. I think it will be again, just because of the low inventory, but.
Well, so there is that aspect, right? And obviously there's a lot of economical factors that we can't predict, and so it's anybody's guess as to what's genuinely going to shape up this year. It's interesting to see that the price point predictions for this year got reassessed. I guess as of October last year, a lot of the key players like Goldman Sachs and Zillow and Realtor.com, and I know.
Okay. I just can't help but smirk.
Well, no, even Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, right? So like they all give their price predictions as far as valuation increases, and all of them as of October last year were actually like anywhere from 0.5% to 2%. And the most recent report that came out, I just saw it a couple of days ago, from one of my more trustworthy clients. So like I tend to believe their what they're sharing. And everyone reworked their price points to be like anywhere from 5 to 2%. And so those 0.5% came up to 2%. And I think that was Fannie Mae that actually brought up to that. And so it's interesting to see how those tides are kind of turning a little bit. And even for us, our January and February numbers have really, they've really overshadowed previous years, even 2 years ago. So we're looking to be on track.
I know. Just keep knocking.
We're looking to be on track to have a very busy year. Maybe not like what we saw in 20 and 21, but maybe more like a 22. And if we can see a 22, I think that by and large, realtors throughout our area are going to largely benefit from that, because obviously what happened last year is that we saw a lot of thinning of agents.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like you see a lot of the same people over and over again.
You do.
But I mean, it was not like it was in 2020 and 2021, like 2022, like you had to kind of like be on your A game. You did, and know what you were getting yourself into and what your clients were getting into and the ins and outs of it. You have to know.
Prepare.
Know and prepare. And then also when it comes to January, February markets, last year, I didn't feel like I had like a winter market. Like I was busy all winter long.
Good for you.
Same thing with this year's like kind of trending that way too. I think the snow has a lot to do with it.
We had that talk in our office too.
If it's not snowing, everybody will battle the cold. But if it is snowing, they do not want to move.
Yeah.
They do not want to move.
I don't get it. I mean, like logistically, I can see there being a little bit of a challenge as far as the physical act of moving. But beyond that,
I don't know what it is though. It's like the snow makes
people stay home.
People stay home. So where we didn't have, I mean, the snow like 2015 and 2008 and all that kind of stuff, like with the less snow, I feel like the market kind of, yes, it slows down, but it's mostly, that's holiday driven, I think.
Yeah,
versus
for sure.
like
December is a very large factor in there.
Yeah.
You know, Christmas, New Year's. But post, there's 3 to 4 weeks of kind of a quietude of sorts from like middle of December to middle of January. But after that, it normally, like right around Martin Luther King Day, it normally comes back to kind of a resting point, depending on whatever the weather is, right? And it's obviously, it wreaks havoc on our schedule when a large snowstorm a la last week is predicted. And then it turns out to be honestly a flop, right? And so what ends up happening is, of course, we try to, plan ahead and vacate that day as much as possible so that we don't have last minute cancellations and movements for the safety of our own clients as well as our own staff. But that really wreaks havoc on that week's new listings. And so that translates, of course, to the buyers and future sellers as well. And so it's very interesting to hear that from you too, because it aligns with what we've experienced.
Yeah.
So, but your strategy to keeping busy during the winter, can you share some insight on that?
I think it's more marketing driven. Like you just try to find the content that you want to put out there. Prep your sellers for the spring market, have them try to motivate them to get their projects done that they want to get done and not wait too long and they're doing it in the spring. Just trying to keep everybody on track and like motivated that like spring will come, like just hold on, Sure. And then if people do need to move in the winter, just trying to make it as easy as possible.
Yep. And what does easy as possible look like?
Just making sure that you have a little bit of leeway on dates for snowstorms and things like that, and making sure like they're on top of getting their moving company on time and not waiting till last minute for things, because everybody else, there are other people doing the same exact thing, and like people get busy. Yeah. Like you have to keep everybody on task and deal with like winter vacations and juggling. It's just everything's always juggling. Yep.
Expect the unexpected. Yeah, the only thing that's predictable is the unpredictability. Yeah. And definitely it shows itself a ton in our business. Yes. And so being responsive is a very large part of that. Yeah. So one of the common things that people that are initially going self-employed, it doesn't matter if it's real estate or another industry, is that, I get to set my own hours. How does that resonate with you?
I've been self-employed for 15 years. So I fully am aware of juggling schedules, juggling multiple jobs, and like people and everything that you need to in between. So I don't struggle with it.
Fair. Fair. And if somebody were to come into the industry and say something like that to you, what would your response be to them? Would you give it a good chuckle and say, you don't get to set your own hours. You get to let your clients
set your hours.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, you can set boundaries.
Right.
which is really hard to do. Especially like I don't have children. So
Sure.
for me, I'm not like tied to a bedtime or anything like that. So I have a little bit more flexibility with that, but also like you kind of have to have the boundaries or you're just going to be completely married to your job. I'm already married.
Yeah, exactly. You're already taken.
Already taken.
You're already taken.
Mm-hmm.
No. And obviously it's a matter of priorities, right? And so for you, it's about balance. So, what are some of the things that you like to do in your spare time?
I hike a lot with my dog because if not, she just like will get into something.
What's your dog's name?
Arashi.
And she is
they call the breed a Kanuku, but it's just like an island dog from Aruba.
Okay.
We went to Aruba 2 Octobers ago and we had been there multiple times before. And when we fly back and forth, I volunteer to bring like puppies back, save the puppies.
Each time?
Like 4 times, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they just get to come on the plane with you and they take care of everything. They make
One-way
it super
trip?
easy. One-way trip.
Interesting.
Yep, you have to have a direct flight, and then I just meet either the adopter or the foster parent at baggage claim and pass them off.
Huh.
Only this one we fostered for 24 hours and ended up with her.
Well, at least you're not becoming an intake form for more.
No.
Okay.
We fostered one other dog while we had Arashi, and we are a 1-dog family.
1-dog family.
We can't. It's too much.
Okay.
But we call her our favorite souvenir.
Favorite souvenir. There you go. All right. From Aruba.
Yep. We named her after our favorite beach in Aruba.
Which is?
Arashi Beach.
Arashi Beach. Okay. All right. I wasn't sure if there was like a spin or anything like that. No. So is that your favorite place to go in Aruba?
Yeah, I'd say so.
And would Aruba be your like first choice for a destination for vacation, or do you have other favorites?
It has been. I'm trying to get Mark to branch out and like go to different places. We're actually going to St. Thomas next week.
Okay.
So we're trying out some different islands.
Yeah. Jen and I went to St. Thomas 4 years ago. No, 8 years ago. My goodness. It'll be 8 years in November. Yeah. Wow. Geez, that went by fast. And we had a good experience. We only stayed for, I think, like 6 days maybe. And it was a challenge for me a little bit. I think a couple days in, we actually drove through the island because we actually had to stop at a Staples to pick up something. I think it was some batteries for my flashes because I was down there photographing a wedding. Okay. And driving through St. Thomas was a little bit sobering because the island population that lives there full time is generally not very privileged. And so going through some of the more poverty-stricken areas definitely took the edge of the vacation off a little bit.
Yeah.
And that was challenging to see. And, it definitely, I felt a lot of empathy toward how that all works. We were staying just at an Airbnb there, and we were just dining locally. We weren't doing the whole resort experience and stuff like that. So it was a different kind of vacation. So that was a little interesting for our first Caribbean experience.
I like doing it that way though. Airbnb, rent a car.
Yep.
Go to all the restaurants that are like a part of the island that people from the island are like putting their heart and soul into.
Correct. Versus the chains. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And so that's kind of the solace that we sought out on that, instead of kind of funneling into an economical system, it was being put to more local use, Interestingly, from a industry standpoint, it became aware to me that apparently, and I don't know if all the islands are like this, but St. Thomas had and someone can fact check me on this one, that's fine. From what I understand, St. Thomas has a legal requirement that the only contractors allowed to do work on the island are, in fact, island residents. You can't bring in outside construction teams to do the work.
Good.
So I thought that was pretty fascinating when I learned about that, which is really odd if you think about it from a stateside standpoint, right? Because, you have companies that come in from out of state all the time and do developments and things like that. And obviously that's a different scenario down there because you could very easily dry up the job market by bringing in your own contractors and stuff. Yeah. So that was nice to see. But anyway, all that to say, that's the takeaways that I had from St. Thomas. So I hope that you guys have a good time.
It'll be fun.
When is that, you said?
Next week.
Next week. All right. How long for?
A week.
Okay. Anywhere in particular? You've already...
He booked it.
You booked it. Oh, go Mark.
Yeah. Well, I just told him he's a review. He checks all the reviews.
I'm the same way.
So for me, I'm just like, oh, that looks nice.
Yeah.
I like the pictures.
Sure.
Most of them, majority of them are good. We're good. And then like he goes right to the bad reviews and he's like, we're not staying here.
Yep.
And then he shows me why. And I'm like, okay, you're right.
Right. Especially if there's a common thread in the bad reviews.
Yeah. So like when I'm like, look at this one. And I just keep getting shot down because I'm not like looking into it enough.
Sure.
I'm just like, can you just book it?
Yeah. I get it.
So I'm like, you want to go that bad? Book it. I'll help with the flights.
Yeah, there's that. As far as reviews, actually, that's a good conversation. Review collection, is that something that you guys have a system for, or do you reach out to your clients normally, one-on-one and try to encourage them to leave a review? How does that work for you guys?
Both, I guess. For me, I struggle with the balance because Matt obviously wants us to get reviews for the SRS team on our site and everything like that. But I also see the other side of it where I want more individual reviews, and like I have a balance with that. So I just tell my clients to bear with me and like, I don't care if you copy paste it, just please review them both. I want to just trying to keep everybody happy.
Yeah, no, the dirty underbelly, right?
Yeah. So it's like, that's the tough part with being a team. Like you want to be an individual, but you are part of the team.
That's a good point.
Balance.
Yeah. Never, I guess on a day-to-day basis, I wouldn't think about stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Obviously, since everybody at Mentor Photography is an employee, we don't need to necessarily concern ourselves with like individualizing our reviews for our photographers. But people normally will call out the photographer in their feedback.
Yes.
Right. And so we try to highlight that wherever possible by actually even on social media tagging the photographer in question. And so, Jen takes care of all that stuff, which is fantastic. But I can see from a team environment how that dynamic would shift.
I love how you do it though. You ask for feedback. You're like not asking for a review,
right?
But you ask for feedback. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. I'm not interested in reviews as much as I am criticism. Mm-hmm. And it comes in variety of types, right? So we get everything from just quick one sentences to paragraphs of review, and it's fantastic, and especially the ones that aren't fully satisfied, but they can tell you why.
Yeah,
those are the building blocks of success right there. And sometimes it can be hard to read because you're like, oh, I felt like I failed that client, right? But the truth of the matter is, if you learn from that and you adapt it towards future experiences, that's a win-win. Mm-hmm. So it's
hard to write that stuff too, just so you know.
I know.
Because you have to also, like, if you can't constructively like give constructive criticism, like you're not helping anybody.
It just becomes the ego stroke at that point.
Yeah, like you got to be able to like give and take with it.
Yep, for sure. For sure. We find that your homes are normally very well prepped. What are some of the steps that you take to try to ensure that experience is maintained?
I feel like I do help my clients like move furniture around and I try to visualize it as much as possible, what I want the picture to look like.
Yep.
So I'm there beforehand. Like I do I'm not a stager. I'm not saying I'm a stager.
Neither are we.
But I do tend to be able to see like when there's blank spots where you want to like put a table there and like stick a plant on it, or put like fresh white towels on the towel rack, or make sure things are folded properly and you can't see anything under the bed, and just everything like kind of just so. And I tell people, like, if you can't find it after I'm done like helping the photographer, check the nearest drawer of the cabinet, because that's remotes. Probably where it is. Like anywhere where you think that like would be kind of like a normal spot to put things if you had to tuck it away, it's probably there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. So what you're describing, I think, is a little bit more of a soft stage.
Yes.
Right. And it might just be a day of, or just slightly in advance prep. Mm-hmm. And those are important factors in making photo day a success, because sometimes, a lot of times actually, in unstaged properties, those are very frequently overlooked. There seems to be a pretty large divide. There's realtors who go the full nine and they stage everything and they bring in a professional, they pay for the consult, or they have the client pay for the consult, or whatever it might be. And they'll do like a full stage. And then there's realtors who honestly, the first time showing up at the house is when we show up at the house. And those are rough days, because we have to operate on the fly. Mm-hmm. And it's frequently difficult to do that within the appointment time frame that we had already scheduled, with the understanding that it would get taken care of prior to us going there, because, it's kind of a common courtesy thing. Mm-hmm. And, I think that I know that going to the property well in advance of photo day is in the client's best interest.
Yes.
And so it's important to take those steps,
mm-hmm.
And that sounds like something that you're doing.
Try to be there 45 minutes before the photographer, just to be able to like move things around. Because no matter how much you tell a client, like they just don't have the same vision as you. It's not that they don't see it, but they still live there. So they're used to things being in certain places.
Yes.
So you just kind of have to take the personality out of it sometimes.
You do.
Mm-hmm.
You do. And it's hard to do that when someone's still living in their home.
Yeah.
So there you have to tread carefully,
mm-hmm.
right? As far as, so waterfall transactions, or at least, the buy and sell, are there any factors that go into that aren't common in, and I know some of the answers on this one, but I'm going to say it anyway, that aren't common in just strictly the sell? Like talk to me a little bit about the things that you consider when you're dealing with a buy and sell client versus just a sell client.
I find it difficult when I am the seller's agent or the buyer's agent, but I'm not the opposite.
Okay.
So sometimes they have a seller's agent that they want to use, but the seller agent doesn't do buyers. Ooh. Or something like that, like whatever it may be. Like I've been on transactions like that.
Okay.
It's hard to, it's like just coordinating everything and making sure communication is key. It really is.
One hand's not talking to the other.
Yeah.
Okay.
I find it a lot easier when I can handle both, because I already know the dates and I have like this weird photographic memory. So I kind of like can try
valuable photographic memory.
Yes, I guess so. And just try to like hone in on dates and like make sure the key dates are met. And you just have to try to like sync everything as much as possible.
Sure. And it's harder to do when there's two entities involved.
Right.
Okay.
But also just like being transparent with the other agent. Like if you're selling, you have a buyer's agent on this side, and when you're buying, then now you're dealing with a seller's agent. So you have to make sure everybody's kind of there. And I try to also make sure like the attorney that I use is handling both sides.
That's a good call.
Like not having more people in the kitchen than need to be more.
Yeah, for sure.
So I try to tell my clients it's in your benefit. It's in your best interest to have one attorney handling the sale and the buy, so everything can be a little bit more streamlined. I find it easier for me too. One less person to put on the emails.
Yeah, there is that too. And if you have a go-to attorney, that even makes the whole process for that a lot easier too.
I have a go-to everything.
Good.
I try.
It's about the network.
Yeah.
It's not about necessarily what you know, it's about who you know.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously what you know is important as well, as we know. But the experience that you bring to the table isn't just your own personal, it's also through your vendor associations and things of that nature.
Absolutely.
That you're inherently bringing their experience to the table as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you can advocate for your clients really well.
And it's a trust thing too. Yeah. Like if you know what you're going to get, you're like, there's no like unsureness with it.
Yep.
So it makes it easier, I think.
All right. So you're loving this?
I am.
Good.
I am. I see myself doing it for quite some time.
Good.
Just want to keep on doing it. My goal this past year for 2023 was to hit top producer.
Yep.
For the last 2 years it has been, but missed it by one the last time. So I just kept those same goals and actually got it this year.
Good.
So I'm excited and proud about that one. I really put my head.
That's hard.
Yeah.
That's a hard miss.
Missed it by one.
So top producer from we're talking about volume sold, not in dollars sold.
Right. Volume.
Okay. All right. And so for this year's goals, have they changed since last year?
No, I think I'm still wanting to get there. I just want to stay there. I don't want to yo-yo with it. Just get there, stay there.
Consistency.
Consistency. Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I mean, Mark makes it easy because he knows we're a team. So he's over there like leaf blowing the house before pictures. If we need to get the house, the leaves off the ground, he'll like bring the mower in the back of the truck and put like fresh lines on the grass and
That's
all that
awesome.
fun stuff. Yeah.
That's a good support system.
Absolutely.
I'm glad that he's there for you and helping you achieve your goals. That's definitely indicative of a supportive, significant other spouse. And that's awesome to see. It's awesome to see. There's obviously a lot of different ways of doing real estate, right? Yeah. And I think that you have to own the way that you're doing real estate in order for it to be fulfilling for you. And it sounds to me like you're hitting that trend. Trying. Okay. Good. So that's awesome. What are some personal goals for you this year? Non-business.
Well, we do a lot of glamping because we have a travel trailer that we go camping a lot in the summer.
Yep.
Toning down the trips this year.
Okay.
I want to be more around for my clients. I know that's not like a personal goal, but still like I want to be being like around a little bit more than I was last year. But just keeping the balance, trying not to be like completely bogged down 24/7, like with my face in my laptop. I've been trying really hard the last couple of years to like find that balance with real estate because it can get overwhelming.
Yeah. I think any business can swallow you up if you let it, right?
Consuming. That's a better word for it.
Consuming. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All consuming. It's true. It's very true. And it's hard to set, I talked about boundaries earlier, it's hard to establish and maintain those boundaries without thinking of the possible side effects of how it will affect other areas of your life and not just business, right? Because like boundary setting is something that you can do throughout your life. And it just depends on what the topic is, right? And so some areas are easier to set and maintain boundaries in. And I found that for business, if you go into a transaction having pre-established boundaries going into the transaction, it's a heck of a lot easier to maintain it through the transaction versus coming into it completely open-ended and then trying to funnel them back down to your expectations, right? Or your boundary setting. So that's one of the, that's one of the things that I've noticed trend over time. I can definitely see that's both a personal and a business goal. And I think those are maybe some of the more fruitful goals because they affect more than one area of your life. So just
being self-employed for so long, like people will try to walk all over you because they think they're like not talking to a boss or whatever it is, but because everybody usually has someone above them.
Sure.
But when you're self-employed, there's not that many people, if at all. So like you are the boss. And so you just have to own that and project that and like show it.
Yep. Confidence. Confidence. You got to carry it with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't just put it down somewhere.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, it was a nice conversation today.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. It's a pleasure to have you in here and always nice to catch up with you. So we're going to just, we'll see how 2024 shapes up for all of us. Yeah. I'd like to have you back at some point and see, in hindsight, what those personal goal changes look like for you in hindsight. So let's keep in touch.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You.